evening, or rather where you are, good morning, and welcome to the 70th Oscar celebrations here at the Shrine Auditorium in downtown Los Angeles. In these cinematic Olympic Games, Britain's hopes rest largely on the full Monty and such performers as Anthony Hopkins, Judi Dench and Helena Bonham Carter, while America firmly believes that Titanic will emerge as Victor Ludorum with 10 or even 12 little gold statuettes. I rather think America is right, but either way, Oscar is about to tell us. Hello again, and with me now is David Anson, the film critic of Newsweek magazine, to help guide us through this night. It's good to have you here with us, David.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
That first award, that was a good one, wasn't it? She really deserved it, I think.
I think so. It's a good choice. I mean, it was a strong field.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. I mean, it was kind of known that it was going to be either Kim Basinger or Gloria Stewart. They actually ended up in a tie for the Screen Actors Guild Award.
So they did. Yes, of course they did.
Tie. So it was going to be one or the other, and it was interesting that it wasn't Titanic.
Well, that's what I was thinking, because, you know, I mean, last year, as we both remember, the independent films just swept the board. And all the indications around town are that this is the year when The Empire Strikes Back, you know, the biggest movie ever made, most expensive movie ever made. What do you think?
I think it is.
Yeah.
Even barring this award, I expect that it's going to win 10 or 11 awards tonight. All the indicators seem to point in that direction. It's won so many of the Guild Awards that are given separately. But maybe there's a backlash. There's certainly one. You feel it. You feel it around town that people are kind of resentful of all the Titanic talk.
Yeah, you do get that feeling, don't you?
Yeah, but it's been too successful.
Yeah, but I think it's the kind of people you and I mix with, journalists and critics and whatnot.
Not the people who vote.
No. I mean, no, if I were a voter, the film I'd have voted for was L.A. Confidential. And the director I'd have voted for was Curtis Hanson.
I agree.
I think incomparably the best of the 5 films this year.
No, I think it is the best of the 5. And it swept all the critics' awards in the States, almost every one of them. But the critics and the Academy are two different species.
Are they not? I have a feeling, David, you and I are going to be talking an awful lot about Titanic over the next 3.5, 4 hours, or however it goes. But the next award is for costume design, with British hopes resting on Sandy Powell. So then, David, the first award of the evening for Titanic, do you think the floodgates have opened?
I think so, because this was one that I thought it actually had a slight chance of losing. The Wings of the Dove, I think, was a stiff competition. But the fact that it won this, I think, in almost all the technical awards, we're gonna hear the name Titanic a lot tonight.
Well, now explain something to me. Why is Titanic so successful? Because everybody who asks me what I think of the film, I give the same answer to. I say it's a film which somehow contrives to be terribly impressive without actually being very good, and I stick by that. You know, it is not a great movie, is it?
No, it isn't a great movie. I mean, I'm sort of fond of it in spite of all its flaws. I mean, I think it has this wonderful scale. You know, I think it reminds. At least it reminds the older audience of what movies used to be like when they were kids. And I think, obviously, a great part of its success is Leonardo DiCaprio,
who's not been nominated.
Who has not been nominated, who isn't here tonight.
Yeah. Is he sulking?
I think he's sulking a bit, yes. I'm sure they asked him to present an award. They must have, but
well,
he
I'm
obviously...
sure Cameron and company would have asked him to turn up at least, wouldn't they?
He obviously turned them down. But it's a phenomenon. I mean, it's like nothing else everywhere in the world.
But I mean, there have been critics over here, not you, I hasten to add, but there have been critics over here who have actually likened it to Gone with the Wind. Now, this seems to me to be a nonsense, because it's not in the same class.
No, I don't think it is in the same class at all. I mean, the script is really, in terms of the dialogue, is pretty awful, as many people have pointed out, and the villain is such a cardboard
Well, even the Academy recognised that the script wasn't up
to it. It wasn't nominated.
Now, coming up, we have got Best Supporting Actor. Now, Burt Reynolds?
Well, it's interesting. Burt Reynolds, of course, has made a great comeback in Boogie Nights, which I think is a wonderful performance in one of my favorite movies this year. And he won all the Critics' Awards, and at first people thought he was the favorite. But it's a funny thing, too many people know that, in fact, Burt didn't like Boogie Nights. Burt, in fact, fired his agent for putting him in the film. Of course, when the movie opened and the reviews came out, he changed his tune,
He's always had a great choice of roles. But,
yes. He thought striptease was the pinnacle of his career.
Yeah.
So this has been in the press, and I think this isn't going to help him any. I have a hunch that Robin Williams might win this one. He's never won. He's very popular in Hollywood. He's been nominated 4 times. And how can they resist seeing him up there? They want to know what he's going to do.
Well, I tell you, it won't be a 30-second acceptance speech.
No.
Will it? I mean, this could go on all night if
Turn
Robin
into
Williams wins.
the Robin and Billy show. But no, it's an interesting race. There were good. Robert Forster was another surprise from the past.
And how good he was.
Wonderful, subtle performance. Yeah, awfully good. Of course, a lot of people noticed that Rupert Everett was overlooked for My Best Friend's Wedding, and when it came out, everyone thought he was a shoo-in, maybe needed to win.
But I mean, this is a category in which all kinds of obvious people have been overlooked. I mean, Billy Connolly, I thought, for Mrs. Brown, deserved it. And what about the men in L.A. Confidential, particularly Kevin Spacey? He was absolutely terrific.
Yeah, he was terrific.
What happened there?
I don't understand it. I mean, I don't happen to think Greg Kinnear's performance in As Good as It Gets is all that good.
No, I would agree with it. It's nice, but that's
nice,
about all there is to
yeah,
it.
I mean, but everyone you've mentioned, I think, gave a more interesting performance.
Yeah.
It's puzzling to me.
There's always one of the great things about Oscar night, isn't it? The people who should have been nominated but haven't been.
Right. There's always.
But anyway, I mean, almost any moment now we're going to see who wins. And actually, I think it'd be quite nice if it was Burt Reynolds, because he's been around a long time.
He has. He's done good work in the past.
Okay, we'll see. Well, that was a comparatively restrained Robin Williams, really, wasn't it?
Yes,
I expected more of an outburst.
Yeah, I think he was truly taken aback.
Didn't expect it, probably didn't expect it. Yeah. But you can't begrudge it to him somehow. I don't know. He's given some awful performances in his time.
He has, and some good ones.
And some good ones, and that was one of the better ones. But now the one that's coming up, of course, is terribly important in Britain, because there are 4 British ladies and the 1 American.
Yeah.
Now, my feeling is that the American voters are going to say, look at this poor, beleaguered little girl, holding up the flag, and it's going to be like the American Revolution all over again, with all these, 4 female redcoats coming at her, and they're going to vote for the local girl, Helen Hunt.
Well, you may be right. You may be right. It happened once before, remember, with Marissa Tomei, who was the only American. And she was a surprise winner. This wouldn't be such a surprise. I think a lot of people are predicting her. But I wouldn't count out Judi Dench.
I think Judi Dench deserves it, don't you?
I do too. I'd vote for her among this group. But I know a lot of people who are voting for her. It's, people know how good she is. It's a question of did enough people see Mrs. Brown?
Yeah.
But I'd give a slight edge to Helen Hunt, I think.
Yeah, she seems to come into it late, didn't she? Because there was a period when almost everybody was saying that Judi Dench looked like being the number 1 favourite.
Yeah,
the hot
that's
favourite.
true. And people were saying that there were various talk about Julie Christie having a good shot, and Helena Bonham Carter. I think Kate Winslet, really, oddly enough, is the long shot in this field.
Yeah, yes, she is, isn't she?
It's the one Titanic award that I think everyone knows won't be given.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, even Kate sitting in the audience there doesn't look like somebody who's expecting to get anything much, does she?
I think so. It would be a real surprise.
Yeah. So I think, obviously okay, we're both agreed it's going to be Helen Hunt.
It's going to be Helen Hunt.
Not necessarily that's the best choice. Right, well, David and I have now been joined, good time to turn up by Amanda Donohoe. Yeah, beautiful timing on your part. Now, Amanda, what did you make of that? Apart from that being possibly the worst acceptance speech you've heard in years.
Well, it was overtly generous, I have to say. I mean, it was wonderfully generous. But I do think you were right. You were saying you kind of dilute your own compliment by thanking everybody else who's also nominated with you. But hey, she was being nice. She was trying to be nice, and she is a very nice woman.
Oh, I'm sure. I thought we were getting close to the great Sally Field. You like me, you really like me. But, yeah.
No, good.
But
good.
Was that? Did you approve? I mean, would you have voted for her?
I have to say that all those ladies nominated certainly gave very distinctive and glowing performances. I'm not sure I liked all the films they were actually in.
No, I agree with that.
As Good as It Gets was, I'm sorry, I didn't quite get it. I don't know where it went, but I didn't I couldn't understand it, but I thought she was luminous, Helen, and proved herself a movie star, which is something I never expected from her at all, I must say.
Yeah, because she's really better known for television, isn't she,
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Yeah, she's a big television star here in the series Mad About You.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, what's wonderful though is that it's the first time that a sitcom queen, as the trades like to call her, has also been nominated for an Oscar. I mean, it is unprecedented, and I think that she's won this. So the sort of myth that if you work in television you can't work in movies has been blown out of the water.
Well, I suppose it
good
has.
for her.
But this strikes me as another category that David and I were discussing earlier. It's notable for the people who weren't nominated. I mean, I thought Pam Grier and Jackie Brown was worth a nomination. And
it's interesting, you'll notice all the black movies, Eve's Bayou being one, which won, as you said earlier this weekend, a Spirit Award, independent movie, which was a first-time feature which was superb, with some phenomenal supporting performances from black actors and actresses. Ignored.
There was another film that was completely ignored, which was A Thousand Acres with
Yes.
Jessica Lange and Michelle Pfeiffer. I think the movie had problems, but I think those big problems. But I think those performances were really
exquisite
extraordinary.
actresses.
Yeah.
Yes, exquisite.
Yeah, but I mean, as we were saying too, that this is what happens on Oscar night. That the people ought to be there very often. I mean, as Sigourney Weaver, I thought The Ice Storm is a film that's been totally ignored.
It was interesting that Helen Hunt mentioned Joan Allen.
Yes.
In The Ice Storm,
That's
because
right.
it was a wonderful performance, and that movie was completely overlooked. It isn't sentimental enough for the Academy. It's too chilly for their taste.
Really, and I'm still dying to meet these people. Who are the Academy members? Do we know anybody who's an Academy member?
Well, there's what? There are 5,370 of them or something,
Are
aren't
they all
71.
in the business?
Only one,
They
I beg your
have to be,
pardon.
don't they? Yes, they're all in the business.
Yeah.
In all spectrum of the business.
Yes, that's right.
So where do they?
Many of them are retired.
Right.
But once you join, you're sort of never out.
So what's your average age of an Academy member then?
Well, I think it's up there.
We're talking over 45, say?
I would think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think those are the young ones, of the
Yeah.
45-year-olds.
Those
I
are
mean,
the young
you do get new blood in it by being nominated.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
another way to
Oh,
get
I
into the
see.
Academy.
That's right.
All these people who were nominated tonight will be members, so that sort of keeps it a little fresher.
Yeah, well, and actually, for the benefit of the more jingoistic people at home, I've got to tell you that Britain is not doing very well at all. We haven't won anything yet. I mean, Driver didn't win. It's Good to Talk didn't win. Famous Fred didn't win. I really don't think we're going to win anything very much at all, because even the Full Monty, I think, is outgunned, isn't it?
Although I think that the Titanic seems to be cleaning up the technical awards,
Right.
as it perhaps
Well,
should,
it hasn't-
because it's a
yes.
beautifully put together piece of
Yeah.
technical work.
Hasn't run into any ice flows yet, has it?
It hasn't,
I mean,
no,
it's
it
only,
hasn't.
it's
But
only dropped
maybe
one
with
nomination.
acting categories, we may
Yeah.
see something
Well,
change there.
Oh, it's
Well,
dropped
it's-
two
it's
nominations now,
lost
hasn't it? Well,
two
both
already,
its
yeah.
acting categories.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, but
Maybe makeup. It may not win makeup. That's about the only other one I think it could lose.
Now, which one would get makeup then?
Well, probably Men in Black.
the
because
point that
they'll
occurs to me
use special
about
effects with makeup.
about Titanic, if I may say so, is that, I mean, it cost so much, it was made for so long, it employed so many people. Half the Academy members must have been working on it. So presumably they're all going to vote for Titanic, unless, of course, the one thing against this is that James Cameron isn't necessarily all that popular, is he? So some of them might vote against him.
No, I was reading this in the New Yorker this
Anyway,
week.
we will see. We've got music coming up now. The Full Monty, I think, is in with a chance there, possibly. Well, at last we do. Britain does have something to celebrate with Anne Dudley's win for the Full Monty, and also John Pincarver for Jerry's Game. Thank you very much, David. Should have mentioned that before. So 2 wins for Britain so far. I mean, it's not bad, is it? No,
it's not great.
It's not. It's not well,
wonderful,
yes, you
but
could
it's
say
all
it's not great. What is interesting now about Titanic is that it cannot.
It can't beat Ben-Hur.
Can't beat Ben-Hur. So
It's lost 3, so it can only get 11. That's the
Only
maximum.
11.
Only,
a mere
only 11.
How do you, where do you stand on this Titanic versus the rest argument? I mean, it seems to be Titanic versus the rest,
It
doesn't
is.
it?
Well, when you spend that kind of money on a film, and it does so well, you sort of want to shout about it, I suppose. I personally, I was surprised that the movie wasn't better when I went to see it after all the hype that I was given. I appreciated the special effects. They were superb. I loved watching the ship go down, but whether I very much cared about those people who lived or died that I was presented with, I'm not sure. And when was it one of the bosuns on the deck? There were no more lifeboats, and he got very, very upset. And he kills himself. He shoots himself with a starter gun or something. Yeah. And my audience applauded.
Do you know? I tell you what. Just before Titanic opened in Britain, they showed A Night to Remember on television, and I watched that. Much more moving than Titanic.
More. I mean, because you get to know more than just those two young people who. There were people around them with families and lifetimes of love and experience, and we're supposed to care about these two young people who've just met.
I know.
It's difficult.
All the corpses were floating by them, and we were asked to care about that long death scene. It was ridiculous.
And what woman in her right mind is going to throw those jewels overboard? I'm sorry.
Do you know, I said that. I asked Kate Winslet, and she was horrified that I should have asked such a crass question. Oh, yes, she was.
Oh, no. It was definitely a man who wrote that script.
But come on, I mean, what do we know? This is a film that's taken $1,000 million at the box office.
What can you say?
What do we know?
What do we know?
I'll tell you very quickly, I gather there was a meeting of all the head honchos at 20th Century Fox a little while ago, and they sat down, and the head honcho said to everybody else, this year we've had two of the most successful films of the year. One cost $250 million, one cost $3 million. What can we learn from that? Isn't that marvellous? What can we learn from that? And the answer is, of course, that you can't learn anything. You know. William Goldman said it, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yes.
Nobody knows anything.
They didn't finance the full Monty.
But that is the very essence of the Hollywood dream, isn't it?
Well, that, I don't know what you think, but I felt that was pleasantly unsentimental, that last bit. Although, David, it's a bit cheeky, isn't it, for the Academy to get Martin Scorsese, whom it has resolutely ignored throughout his entire career, to give a special Oscar to someone else.
But they've ignored for their
They've also ignored, you know, I mean,
yeah, it is ironic. I mean, Scorsese is one of the great omissions of the last 20 years of cinema, you know. He keeps getting beat out by actors, you know.
Yes,
Robert
he does.
Redford,
yes.
And then Kevin Costner, who has truly proven himself a great cineast with The Postman.
Yes, that's right, because he was up against, with The Postman. The Razzie Awards last night, you know about the Razzie Awards, of course. You know, these are the alternative Oscars. These are for the worst films and the worst performances. And Costner got 3 of them, didn't he?
Oh, did he?
Yeah, yes, he did.
Worst picture,
for which one?
worst actor, and worst director.
That's right.
For,
All for The Postman.
Oh, really?
And Demi Moore was, I may tell you, was worst actress for G.I. Jane. However, let's get back to the real Oscars, Tonight Show. Yeah, I mean, it would be very nice if one day they did honour Martin Scorsese, because my God, he deserves it, doesn't he?
I thought he deserved to get nominated this year for Kundun.
Indeed, yes.
That was a beautiful piece of work.
Wasn't it just?
Very,
yes.
very beautiful.
Brave and unusual film to make, I think. Yeah. Now, what about the show itself? I mean, we haven't discussed this at all yet, and I think that Billy Crystal's been terrific, didn't you?
Billy's back. It's all right
Really?
when Billy's out there, because everybody feels so much more relaxed. It's truly a more intimate experience with him, because he breaks those barriers down, those ridiculous formalities, and the old tradition goes out of the window, because he takes the mickey out of everybody,
Yes,
and
he
that
does.
is fabulous. It's just the right.
And also, it was quite bold, really, to do the same trick all over again as they did last year, with having him in all the new films, with just a little bit of a twist to it.
Oh,
But
I love that.
It's becoming a tradition. I mean,
Yes.
everyone loved it so much last year that I think I was glad to see it again.
Oh, I
really
just
works.
loved what, too Jewish with the
with the full Monty, too. That was a beautiful line, wasn't it?
beautiful line.
And this is his 6th time, I think. So he's got to go some to beat Bob Hope, who did it 19 times in the Oscar show.
He's still the record holder.
Yes.
Crystal's great.
But it is,
really
it is better with Billy.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Now, we've had the Best Film Editing Award, and really, I suppose the only true competition to Titanic there was LA Confidential, wasn't it? Now, I think you've said, David, that who wins the Best Editing Award normally gets Best Picture and Best Director.
9 times out of 10.
9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
So, I don't think
He's
this is
been
going
right so far. Damn it.
Well, he has. Yes, he has. He's predicted
really
everything
has.
so far. I hate him. But yeah, I think we can therefore safely predict that LA Confidential is not going to be named Best Picture, and it's not going to be Best Director.
But
and
it is going to win one. It is going to win Best Adapted Screenplay. I think that's a lock.
I
Yes.
thought
Astonished
that
if
the
it
Best
was
Supporting Actress was their little nod to that movie,
Well,
and then
no, I
that
think
was
it's
going to be.
I think it'll get
No?
2. It'll get best screenplay.
Well, yes, I think, yeah, I'm sure you're right.
I'm
You
still
know,
rooting for the Full Monty. It's not nominated for screenplay.
no, that's original
It is,
screenplay.
it's original screenplay.
That's
Yes,
in a different
yes,
category.
I
that
stand
is,
corrected.
yeah. So, but and Hossein Amini for The Wings of the Dove is the British contender, and that also was not a bad piece of work. I think he did a lovely job of. I mean, James is very difficult
It is
to
very difficult.
to convert, but
Yes.
yeah, I think you are.
No, I think Helena was absolutely wonderful in that. I
Yes.
really did enjoy her performance,
I did too.
very much so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, all right. So, when's that? Is that coming up soon? Yes, I think so. I think so. Yeah. Next award, best original song. Well, in a night of no great surprises, it was, as Madonna suggested, no great surprise that Titanic should also win best song. David, I think that puts you 100% record, isn't it? I mean, you've guessed everything so far.
I think.
Um,
Well, the
e-
one I
even the
got wrong,
documentaries.
I did get one wrong.
Ah.
I didn't get the full Monty. For
Oh,
score. That's the only one I've gotten wrong.
Yeah, but it's not bad.
It's-
So, okay, tell us now, who do you think is going to win Best Actor, which is the next big one coming up?
This is really one of the most interesting and closest races of the night because people are completely divided about who's going to win.
Yeah.
It's a three-way race between Peter Fonda, Robert Duvall, and Jack Nicholson. Now, I'm leaning toward Nicholson. I think it feels like it's sort of his year for various reasons.
It
It's sort of-
usually is his
It
year when he's
well,
nominated.
this will be the third Oscar that
Yeah,
he wins
that's right, yeah.
if he does. I mean, I think Duvall's performance is extraordinary,
Yes.
and Fonda's, which is very
Yeah.
subtle and really quite moving.
Yes.
I mean, I think the two of them. It was a very strong year for actors. There were wonderful people who didn't get
It's
nominated
always a strong
again.
year for actors.
Right, and a weak year for actors.
Always a weak year for actors.
Oh dear, that was from the heart.
Particularly
That
this
was, I'm
year.
afraid, that
Particularly
was.
this year.
And yet, yeah, it was a strong year for actors, and yet I don't know. I thought this was a very weak category. I
Really?
didn't think that there was anything outstanding there. They were all good performances, but there wasn't anything that came in and knocked you out. And you said, yeah, that really is
Yeah.
something terrific. What do you think?
I agree. I did. I mean, Jack will probably get it, but
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't particularly think. I didn't believe him as that character in As Good as It Gets. I believed Helen. I didn't believe him. It's interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, his character didn't add up. I mean, it didn't add up in the script.
No, it
I mean,
didn't.
He was working, I think, very hard, harder than he's worked in a while.
Yeah, but it was
I
the
just don't. It seemed like it was somebody he really didn't know.
Yeah.
That's interesting, though. He just didn't know this man well enough to play him in a funny
Well,
way.
I thought he didn't know the nice guy at the end very well. I thought he knew
Yes.
the bad guy at the
Yeah.
beginning,
Right, the
you know,
crusty old thing.
the non-politically correct one. I thought I
Right.
knew him perfectly well,
Yeah.
and that was the kind of thing we've seen Nicholson
him
play so
too.
often. But Fonda actually is the one I'd kind of like to see get it. I mean, if only
lovely
because
performance.
of the dynastic thing,
Yeah.
going back to
Yeah.
his daddy and his sisters,
Got a
Jane's
lot
got
of
an Oscar.
my friends have very mixed feelings about Yuli's Gold. Very mixed.
Really?
Yes, yes.
But we're not thinking young Matt Damon at all.
I don't
I'd
I
be
don't think so.
surprised.
You know,
you can't. You'll
Anyway,
get too
hold-
cocky too soon. won't
Hold
you?
on, people, because we're going to
Oh.
find out pretty soon
Yeah.
now, I tell you.
Okay.
That was a fairly gracious little speech, I thought. And I suppose that after Helen Hunt had been named Best Actress, this was kind of inevitable, wasn't it?
So they seem to be going back to the studio. You know, the Fonda and Duvall were in little independent movies,
Yeah.
and it's a year for big studio movies, old Hollywood glamour, mainstream. It's the opposite of last year in
Isn't-
every way.
yes. Yeah, like I said, it's the year The Empire Strikes Back,
Yeah,
isn't it?
and it's striking back
yeah.
big.
Why do you think that is? Do you think that everybody in the industry got worried that the independents were taking over last year?
Well, I think it did make them very uneasy. You know, they were sort of questioning their own ability to make Oscar quality movies, and
Questioning the fact whether you really do need to spend $100 million to make $100 million.
yeah, spent $200 million.
Yes.
But David, I remember last year you and I earnestly sitting here saying, well, what all these awards to independents indicated was that people who work in the industry didn't like what the industry was doing. Well,
Right. exactly.
I mean, are the films...
Especially the girls, I have to say.
Especially now, come on, this is special pleading. We don't need any more. But on the whole, are the Hollywood films better this year than they were last year? I don't think they are, really, are
No,
they?
I don't think there were that many good Hollywood films this year, actually.
I have to say, I thought Dustin Hoffman was quite superb in Wag the Dog, and
yes.
Wag the Dog was a really amusing and intelligent
Yes, it
Yeah,
was.
film.
it was. It was.
And
yeah.
I'm surprised because I don't think As Good as It Gets, for as much as it was enjoyable, was as good a film.
I don't either.
But who am I to judge?
You know, but you know, they always go for the ones that touch the heart. You know, they're softies. You know,
Yeah.
it's over
Yes,
and over
that's
again.
true,
You
yeah.
know, they go for the emotional.
And also
with the
audiences,
sentimental.
obviously, who are paying to go and see Titanic 3 and 4 and 5 times over,
Yeah.
obviously want that kind of escapism, that
Yes, they
utter
can't-
romance.
They can't all be little girls going to lust after Leonardo DiCaprio, can they? I mean, they've got to be some adults going.
Unfortunately.
Quite a few.
Yeah, quite a
They're
few.
taking the little girls
Ah,
5 or 6 times to see Titanic.
but I mean, what is interesting here is that James L. Brooks, who directed 2 Oscar-winning performances, now he's not mentioned among the best directors, is he? That
It's
is a bit
fascinating, you know.
astonishing.
I mean, I think I'm a great fan of James Brooks. I love Terms of Endearment and Broadcast News. I think the directors were right in not nominating him, frankly, because I think it's a very sloppily directed movie compared to some of the other ones. And his own colleagues seem to feel that, which I thought was interesting.
And this seems to be a bit of a quite usual for the Academy now. They nominate a film, but apparently it was directed by itself.
Right.
Yes,
And
exactly,
the good
yeah.
ones
Right.
are ignored, and
Yeah.
then the or rather average ones, or what we think. We were discussing Braveheart earlier on.
Indeed, yes,
Which was a bit of a shocker for all of us.
Well, yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, every now and again, Oscar does throw up some surprising winners. But I mean, the fact is that to have got 2 Oscar-winning performances out of it, he can't have been doing everything wrong, can he?
He
as a
deserves a great deal
director?
of credit for that. You know, he's obviously very good with actors. But this was a movie I know when in the making he shot a great deal of footage. They were exploring those characters, trying to see how far they could push the Jack Nicholson's unlikability.
Yeah.
And I think they did many, many different variations on it and sort of discovered the movie in the editing room.
Maybe that's what it was about Jack's performance. Is that
Okay,
it
well,
was, put together
What
in
we've
an
got
editing
coming
room.
up now is the Best Screenplay Awards. Now,
Yeah.
James L. Brooks, of course, wrote As Good as It Gets.
Yes, and won the Writers Guild Award.
Yeah.
But he's up against Damon and Affleck for Good Will Hunting.
Another
And,
feel-good movie.
Another feel-good movie. The situation is very much like last year, where Billy Bob Thornton was nominated for Best Actor and Best Screenplay, and he won Screenplay.
We'll see.
It's
We'll
gonna happen
see
again.
now what happens next. Which of those wins? I don't know. They might. That acceptance speech of Mark Damon and Ben Affleck, that was better than most Hollywood scripts, isn't it? They might as well
It
film
was
that.
a nice
Yeah.
double act. That
Yeah.
was.
Yeah,
Very
it really was
Very
a
sweet.
very good double act. Next up, of course, we've got Best Cinematographer. Now that another one for Titanic, but I'm a big admirer of Roger Deakins' work on
Yes.
Kundun. I
Yes.
thought that
Extraordinary.
wasn't it good? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's won some of the Critics' Awards. I'd love to see it win. But
Did As Good as It Gets get nominated for cinematography this year?
No.
I actually really liked the cinematography.
Really?
I don't know why, but I did.
They are. You see, going back to all the people who
Aren't
ought to be
we?
nominated,
We know,
but,
Yeah,
you see?
but
I
aren't.
don't think it was.
But no, I don't
Wings
think it
of the
was.
Dove was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
And
yes,
LA Confidential was.
and LA Confidential was. But Kundun is probably going to run into the category of those films that not enough people saw to vote for anyway, isn't it?
I think that's right. It was too demanding for the Academy's taste.
Yes.
Too non-linear for their taste. I think it's going to be another Titanic, I'm afraid.
Yes, I'm afraid. Yeah, I'm afraid it's going to be one.
Yeah.
But I mean, looking back on those screenwriting awards, they probably went to the right people, didn't they? In the end, do you think?
Certainly with LA Confidential, yes. And I like the script for Good Will Hunting, although to me it's a script that could have gone either way. I think the real credit for this movie goes to Gus Van Sant. It's a premise that, he makes us swallow. It's an outrageous premise.
Outrageous.
And it could, in the wrong hands, it could have been awful. It could have seemed very false and very sentimental.
And there were a couple of holes in that script
There are
as
some
far
holes.
as
there was-
believability.
I mean,
went,
the dialogue's wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah,
And the
but-
characters are rich.
Yes.
I mean, I don't begrudge them this victory, but But I think Gus Van Sant deserves a lot of credit for this film.
Yeah.
And Hilary Henkin was, I thought, for Wag the Dog is
And
a
David Mamet, yeah.
Oh, David Mamet.
David
Yeah,
Mamet,
Mamet really,
yeah.
really wrote that script.
Really? I didn't know that.
There's a
Wow,
big
do
sort of
tell.
dispute about this. Yes, the director, in fact, was very angry that Mamet didn't get sole credit because he felt he deserved it.
But then it's also been suggested that William Goldman helped out quite a lot
I heard
on
that too.
Good Will
Good Will
Hunting.
Hunting.
Apparently,
yeah.
he gave them some advice. He gave them some suggestions, but it was only a day's work.
Okay.
He's written about it.
A
He's-
day
he's-
with William Goldman.
We must
Could
stop
change your
now
life.
because
Really?
in any moment now, the Best Cinematography Awards are coming up. So, well, that was quite a remarkable lineup. Interesting that the biggest cheer was for Shirley Temple, who's obviously going to remain a star long after all the others are forgotten.
Yes.
Yeah. Talking of forgetting, tell me, Amanda, hand on heart, how many of those would you have recognised if it weren't for the flashbacks to when they
If
won
it
the
weren't for
Oscars?
him, I wouldn't have recognised most of them, especially the, I'm afraid, the elderly ladies, especially the movie stars that were. I don't know. I don't recognise very few of them. I don't know if it's all the plastic surgery. I'm not sure. Who can tell?
Yes, I was thinking that some of them had consulted their friendly neighbourhood plastic
yes,
surgeon.
Yes,
hadn't
there
they?
was a little bit of surgery going on there.
Yeah.
But that was, yes, interesting. But obviously, we were saying, my goodness, I hope they don't all turn up. We'll be here all night.
right.
Well, actually, I was going to ask you, David, you don't happen to know offhand what is the record for the longest running Oscar ceremony?
I
Because
don't know, but,
we've
but
got to be
I'm
getting
sure
close.
that this is challenging the record.
do.
Yes, I make it 3 hours and 26 minutes and counting. You know, I mean,
Well, that means it's longer than Titanic.
so it is. And you know something? It seems longer than Titanic.
It does.
I guess it's, it's the year of the epic, and
The
they're
year
just
of the epic,
trying
yes.
to
Yeah.
compete.
Yeah, but there was lots of talk beforehand about how it was going to be crisp and short. And
Yes.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
seemed
What
an odd
happened?
interlude, that panning through several rows of X and what
yeah,
are they?
but I don't know.
Not
It
X,
was,
but
it was kind
former.
of nostalgic, wasn't it?
I suppose so.
But
I don't know, I thought it was quite odd. I wouldn't have personally chosen that segment myself. Would have had Billy back for a bit of a laugh.
But then, I mean, going back, yes, we all pretty well had agreed, had we not, that cinematography was going to
To go to
Titanic.
Titanic.
Yeah.
I think
And
it's
what a
up to.
lineup of cameramen they had.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic.
Didn't
Great
they
work.
just? Yes.
Yeah.
But
But now
But,
it's up to 9. Now it's
9.
just.
it is 9. So, yeah, and the other two, do we
other
think are
two,
foregone conclusions? Pretty well, best director, best
Certainly
picture.
looking that way,
Yeah.
unless,
It
I
is,
mean, it'd
isn't
be
it?
one of the most monumental surprises if it didn't
But
win.
then I always say if they've won everything else,
Yeah.
especially in the technical categories, it may well be
But
a
it's
surprise.
possible. It hasn't won any of the major awards.
hasn't.
Didn't get nominated for writing.
No, that's true.
Didn't win any of the acting awards. Everything has been on the technical side.
Yes,
So
that's an
Yes.
interesting
I guess
point,
that
isn't
leaves
it?
a tiny little
Does. Tiny
opening
little
for,
hope left for
for
us.
Good Will Hunting, which is obviously the one that could knock it off,
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
Do you really? I mean, not LA Confidential?
I don't, well, that would be sort of second in line, I think. But I think that Good Will Hunting, personally I would choose L.A. Confidential.
Yeah.
But I
yeah.
think, again, it goes back to sort of the heart, I think they were
Yes.
more moved by Good Will Hunting, and
Yeah.
that's the kind of movie that usually wins.
That is absolutely true. But the next award, Best Director, is the one that's going to tell us, obviously,
Yes.
who's going to win Best Picture. So
If it's not Cameron, all bets are off.
Yep.
all bets are off. Yeah, I agree.
I think all bets are off anyway.
Successful man, Mr. Cameron, and modest with it, don't you think?
Yes,
You know,
yes.
king of the
King of the
world.
world.
Yeah, what
King of
else?
the world, Mom.
Yeah, well, no great surprise there. It's obvious what's going to happen next, so it's hardly worth talking about what's going to be Best Picture. So, what do you make of the evening so far, you two? I mean,
It's been a very traditional, rather conservative, I feel, evening as far as the voting goes anyway. Yeah.
yeah, it has, hasn't it? Yeah. And I suppose not probably since Schindler's List have there been quite so many foregone conclusions on Oscar night, have there?
Yeah, I think that's true.
You know, because at least last night, I mean, nobody knew much about The English Patient compared with how many people had seen Titanic.
Yeah.
But getting 9 awards was a surprise.
Yeah.
It's now a surprise that Titanic only got 11.
Yes, yes.
It really is
Yeah,
quite
I
remarkable.
think the industry feels that it sort of needs to honor this movie to validate itself.
Yeah.
A movie this popular, that it's good for the industry to give this movie Oscars.
Do you think there was a sense of relief involved as well? Because, you know, just before it opened, everybody was saying this is going to be the biggest flop of all time.
Yeah.
If it had been, Fox would have been in serious trouble, wouldn't
Yeah.
they? Paramount as well. And
Much
then
more Fox. They had
and much
more
more
to
Fox,
lose,
yeah. So the fact that it wasn't a flop, and on the contrary was a huge success, do you think everybody said, oh, thank God for that, let's give it lots of Oscars?
No, I don't think, because in this town is filled with Schadenfreude.
True.
Only the people at Fox were going, thank God we dodged a bullet. Everybody else was saying, damn,
Yeah, but there could
our
have been a
enemies
knock-
didn't get hurt. You know?
But there could have been a knock-on effect for the rest of the industry if two big studios had suffered very badly, couldn't there?
Could have been, yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, you got to remember that one movie can't destroy a studio anymore, because studios are part of these huge conglomerates, and Fox is part of Rupert Murdoch's empire. It's just a little drop in the bucket. I
Yes,
mean,
it
it would
is.
sting for a minute,
Yeah.
but it's not going to collapse the studio. Some people might have lost some jobs, however.
You know, for
Well,
waste
yeah,
of
that's
money
also
too.
true.
Yeah.
All right, well, looking back over the evening, who would you most have liked to have won who didn't? Amanda, go ahead, come on.
I would like to have seen Dustin Hoffman win for Wag the Dog. I thought that was a superb performance. And of course, I do feel disappointed that Full Monty didn't get more of a nod. I thought it was a really fine piece of filmmaking. Only cost how much?
Yeah.
Well, there you go, bargain.
It cost $3 million, and
I think that necessity is the mother of invention, and that's where true art, true creativity comes from. If you've got all that money to shoot as long as you want, whatever you want, whenever you want, it somehow defeats the purpose, I think. Film is a challenge, and if you've got everything at your fingertips and more, I don't know.
yeah, I think perhaps we've been a little too harsh on Titanic, or maybe I have.
I
mean, no, I mean, there were some marvellous things about that film, weren't there? I
And
mean,
they swept the technical,
Yeah.
as they should, Oscars.
as
and
they-
it was
I mean,
stunning.
Yeah.
Cameron is a good filmmaker. I mean, he's made
Yeah.
some wonderful films.
yes, he's
you know.
just not a very good storyteller. I mean, it was certainly not a writer,
Yeah,
that's for
that's
sure.
his-
But
Achilles
Yes, I
heel,
have to
Yeah.
say.
really.
but the action stuff in Titanic
but
was
you know,
fantastic.
it obviously he is a good storyteller.
Yeah, I
or,
guess he
you
is,
know,
yeah.
people wouldn't be, you know,
But
spending
that's
$1 billion
But
to
wait
see
a
it.
minute, that is a story that is as old as the hills. The Titanic is one of the most
Yeah.
famous stories in the world. How can
Yeah.
you go wrong? Oh well, you can, but
You-
he's got a head start, as it were,
He does
because
have
it
a head
is
start.
a hell of a story. I mean, that's the
Okay.
biggest story in
Right.
the world, right?
It is.
Right. Well, with this, thank you very much to both you, Amanda,
Pleasure.
and you, David, for the
you.
company, and for all the comments. And now let's just sit back and watch Titanic get its last Oscar.